Howdy friends, family, YouTubers, lurkers, shirkers, anybody else that's in there. This video has no particular topic. All you're going to see is me sitting here talking to you. I just wanted to do a video to clear up a few little questions, misconceptions, queries. A couple of people have asked some questions in the comments. So I'll start off with the most recent. My previous video mentioned Scoot. Now I was very confused about that, just like one or two subscribers were. I was told by the staff, Singapore check-in staff based in Madin, that I would be transferring onto a Scoot plane run by Singapore Airlines when I got to Changi in Singapore. That confused the hell out of me because I'd never seen Scoot here in New Zealand, never even heard of them until I got into Asia. As it turned out, I was misinformed. A lovely lady at one of the arrival lounges in Changi, she was very confused when I told her what was happening, and she said that Scoot don't even fly to New Zealand, so you can disregard that piece of information. As it turned out, I was on a Singapore Airlines flight number, but I was in fact going back to New Zealand from Singapore on an Air New Zealand flight. I think it was a 777-300, what do they call it, ER, extra range I think it is, an ER. It turns out that flight had about 5 different flight numbers because it was also sold, the seats were sold through Air India, I think it was Lufthansa, Turkish Airlines, Singapore Airlines and Air New Zealand. So yeah, there was quite a bit of confusion, and the strange thing was because I arrived in Changi so early, they hadn't even announced or didn't even have any information available for which gate it was going to be checked in on or anything. So I sat around and I had no idea where I was supposed to be waiting, so I just had a little bit of a nosy online, and funnily enough, for that date I had a gate number online through Google. So I went down there and I waited a considerable length of time, and eventually the board down there displayed that that flight was leaving from the gate that I had found listed online. So I was a little bit confused as to how Google knew long before the airport knew, but there you go. The other confusing thing is, and it's a useful bit of information in case anybody else ever ends up in Terminal 3, I think it was, it's extremely long. It's absolutely chock-a-block full of duty-free shops. I would guesstimate that the whole terminal is probably a good kilometre long, and I walked the length and breadth of it looking for food. And I was on the phone to my wife, who informed me that she was looking at a food court that was in Terminal 3, and I said, well, I've gone from one end to the other and I cannot find a food court. So one would imagine it would take up a fair amount of room. You couldn't possibly walk through it, past it or around it and miss it. So I started to backtrack my steps, and I just happened to look upwards, and I saw up on an upper level there was a mezzanine floor that had the butterfly exhibition, the theatre, I think there was a small hotel up there, blah blah blah. And I just happened to see the very end of a Burger King sign on a premises up there, and I thought, aha. So I wandered up there, and sure enough, Burger King was up there along with the food court, absolutely full of all of these Asian outlets, noodles, rice and whatnot. So I had a bit of a feed of Burger King up there, and came back down into the terminal proper. So for those of you that aren't aware, and you end up in Terminal 3, there's a food court upstairs on the mezzanine floor. Now I went and checked the information board that has a floor plan of the downstairs and the mezzanine floor area with all of the shops noted and services and areas and so forth that people need to be informed about, and there is absolutely no mention of a food court. There's no mention of any food businesses up there. There's not even a sign or anything indicating Burger King or anything like that. So just be aware of that. I'm rather surprised that the shopkeepers up there put up with that and tolerate that, because unless you had some beady eyes or had been there before, you would totally miss it, and you'd go off wandering to another terminal looking for a food court. So that was my Changi experience. It's not one of my favourite airports. In previous occasions, I've gone to Indonesia. I've flown into KL through Malaysian Airlines, and to be quite honest, I much prefer that airport. Changi is just impersonal, huge, massive. It's a city within a city. It's got a couple of nice attractions like the waterfalls and the gardens and stuff, but apart from that, in my opinion, to be quite blunt, it's a shithole. I find it very hard to navigate. I find it very hard to get around. It's too big to get around. Yeah, it's a massive hub. Don't like it. Right, now I've fielded a couple of questions about the reason why I went to Indonesia in the first place was teeth. Now, not a lot of you are aware of it, because it was only in recent times that I had some visible issues. I had old amalgam fillings that started falling out just after my separation with my first wife, with 2 kids at home, only a meagre job. I couldn't afford dentists. That was a luxury that I had to do without. So unfortunately, I spent a number of years where all my old amalgam fillings were breaking up and falling out without the support of a filling in place. Those teeth started collapsing, and I ended up with half a mouthful of teeth that were at gum level. That used to cause me a considerable amount of pain and discomfort. But because of my financial situation, I just tolerated it. And then just before I went to Indonesia, unbeknownst to me, one of my Bugs Bunny teeth in the front had a massive white filling in it, and I had no idea how extensive it was. That filling fell out, and it left me with a hook of a tooth came down from the gum and went across at the bottom where the chewing edge was, and a big hole through it. And obviously, because it only had a little piece holding it on, that snapped off pretty bloody quickly. So my teeth became a cosmetic issue after that, so I had to do something about it. I was living with the teeth the way they were. The front was all right. They were a bit discoloured from too much coffee and cigarettes at that time. I've cut right down on the coffee. I no longer smoke, as a lot of you know. So it became cosmetic because I had a tooth right in the very front missing, so I had to do something about it, and that's when we decided to utilise Steph's contacts, her having been based in a hospital in Medan when she was still living in Indonesia before she came to New Zealand. So we made contact with the dentist that she knew there, who also had his own practice, and made arrangements to go over there. And it looks like my battery is about to go dead. It's gone into the red. I'll go for as long as I can. No, I won't. I'll change it over now. Okay, welcome back. New fresh battery, so I'll be fine for a little while now. Now then, getting back to the teeth. Having made contact with the dentist that Steph used to work alongside of, we made arrangements to go to Indonesia for a little bit of a holiday, catch up with family, which you've seen in previous videos. But I've left the teeth right out of it, apart from a few little mentions. So, not knowing any better and not having had anyone to talk to find out the best course of action, what people's experiences were and everything like that, I decided that the only course of action was complete extractions, take the whole lot out. And the dentist was absolutely marvellous. I experienced the least amount of pain during extractions that I've ever experienced. I've had a few horrific little experiences, including the front ones coming out. He did a marvellous job, and I was quite amazed that, as gentle as he was, he'd finish doing an extraction and say, well, that was it, sort of thing. And I'd sort of say, well, that's one tooth, what about the rest? And he said, oh no, I've taken out 3 or 4 or whatever. So he did the extractions in 3 lots. He took out 3, 4 and then 5. A total of, what's that, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 teeth. Now he left, I'm not wearing my plates at the moment, he left some at the very bottom here with a couple of extractions each side of it, simply because he said those teeth were too strong and still in very, very good condition. They just needed to have some stain removal from the coffee and smoking years of. And plus he wanted something left in my bottom jaw to pin my bottom plate to, what turned into a partial plate. So without further ado, the reason I'm not wearing any is, well, I'll get to the reason why I'm still not wearing any. This is the bottom plate, partial plate. As you can see, it's got a couple of rings of metal work to encapsulate the existing teeth to click in. In fact, it's probably easier if I just put it in. And there you go. It just clips in around the existing teeth. I have a top plate to match that as well. And there we have it. I feel very uncomfortable with them in place. But one of the things that makes them uncomfortable, in fact I'll take it out. One of the things that makes it uncomfortable is this bottom plate doesn't fit particularly well. It was built a little too tight, and although he's done a fair bit of modifying, it still doesn't fit particularly well. So Wally made arrangements to have another bottom plate made. He made a second bottom piece with virtually no metal in it. It's just got a couple of, I don't know if you can see them, there's a little bit of steel poking out there and there in the same places to encapsulate the existing teeth, but there's a little bit of those rods just sort of going through the acrylic just to stiffen it up. But these were just always just going to be a temporary. Wally got another one made, but he just put a little bit of steel through them just to hold it together, and the thickness of the acrylic is such to try and give it some stiffness that I just find it impossible to eat with this. It fits reasonably well, but because there's so much acrylic in my mouth, I have very little room to put any food in, to be quite honest. My bites were less than half the size that they used to be if I was eating a piece of, like a sandwich or anything like that. He always promised me 2 top plates, which I have now 2 sets. So there's the temporary bottom one and a top one spare, and my original tin grin one. I still haven't received the replacement one of these. I think half of the problem was my mouth was still shrinking. It was shrinking fairly slowly, so progress was slow, but I was running out of time. So he was under pressure to provide me with a pair of plates that were going to do the job, but of course my mouth was still shrinking. So just before I left, he took some more moulds of my mouth, and he has ordered a new bottom plate which he will fit to the moulds, and then he'll send on to New Zealand, and I just hope like hell that they're going to fit. But he has said that my next trip back to Indonesia, if I'm still not happy, we'll start again and we'll build some more dentures. By then my mouth should have shrunk sufficiently. I'm impressed with the way that my mouth has shrunk. I'm able to eat without my teeth. I find it a lot easier, to be quite honest. So that's where we're at with our teeth. I put them in for if I've got guests coming, or if I've got photos or something like that, but the bulk of the time I don't bother. I find them very uncomfortable, both of these sets, so I'm going to wait and see what arrives from the dentist as far as my final bottom partial plate is concerned. I'll marry that up with the top plate, and I'll just see how we go and evaluate from there. But I'm picking that it's going to be a get used to eating without teeth type scenario, until such time as I can get back to Indonesia on my next trip. So we'll sort that out then. Now then, the next topic that I was going to cover was I've had a couple of people make a few snide little remarks about the fact that here I am, a retiree with a very limited income, very little in savings, and struggling with my bills. Why in hell I would buy, first off, my Honda when I bought it, and then lo and behold, and shock horror, people were absolutely flabbergasted that I bought a second bike. Now, the reason I bought a bike in the first place was, a lot of people aren't aware of this, but bikes were all I had in my younger days. I've had bikes for years and years and years. I got my bike license not long after my car license, actually. And with my first wife, before we were married and we were living together, a bike was all we had for a very long time. So having a bike was in the blood, and then of course marriage, mortgages, kids, all that sort of stuff comes along, and your priorities change. Had to sell all the bikes, sell my bike. Had to forget about owning a bike. Priorities in life changed. So once the kids grew up and moved out and all that sort of thing, then my second wife came along, and I had a little wee bit of money that was saved up. I decided that after all those years of going without and just solely concentrating on providing a roof over the head of my family, it was time for me to have something. It was my payback. So that's when I bought my Honda, my very first brand new vehicle. It was exactly what I wanted. It was supposed to be, it was the end of a product line, well, end of that year's model. So I got it for the right price. I took Steph over to sit on it, to admire it, all that sort of carry on. She approved. She obviously comes from a country where two wheels is the predominant mode of transport, so owning any sort of a bike, scooter or whatever is of no consequence and is of no surprise to Steph, coming from that sort of culture. She's always gotten around on bikes and bitches, all that sort of carry on until she got here, so it was second nature. My only problem was we learnt very, very quickly that sports bikes are a pretty selfish bike. They're not really designed for pillion passengers, even though they've got pegs in a seat. They're a token effort. Steph found it very uncomfortable and got to the stage where she refused to come for a ride with me, which I thought was a little bit unfair, because it was something that I wanted us to share together, in the hope that she would get enthused about bike ownership and the riding of and all that sort of thing, and would promptly think seriously about getting her bike license. I even offered to buy her a bike to learn on and get her provisional license and everything, but she's never really been interested. So I thought, well, the only way that that Steph is going to be able to come riding with me, or that she'll agree to come riding with me, is if we had a bike that had a decent sized pillion seat on it. And at this stage, I'm still at that stage, I'm not prepared to give up my Honda. It's the bike that I've always wanted for years and years and years, and I finally got it. But I think it's unfair of me and very selfish of me to have a hobby where I have some time out and I'm able to go for rides and enjoy the lifestyle and everything like that, and Steph isn't. So I made the decision to find something that also suited her her needs, so that we could enjoy motorcycling together, and while she's at work I can use my Honda, or if it's just a one man, if I need to just go nipping around doing bits and pieces and stuff like that, I usually take the Honda anyway. So the search started to find something that she would be comfortable on, and I sat on my very first brand new cruiser down at Cycle Spot, my favourite shop. It was only a small cruiser, I think it was only a 600 or a 650 or something, Kawasaki. And I'd never sat on one, never ridden one, and I was totally blown away by the riding position. I thought, wow, this is a bit of me. The Vulcans were at that stage weren't much chop for ownership for the purpose that I had in mind, because again the seat was quite small, the bike itself was quite small. So I started looking around at cruisers, and they had just taken a trade at Cycle Spot of the Suzuki Boulevard, and I sat on that and I was in love. I thought, this will do me. It's got a ample seat, it's got good foot pegs, it's got a sissy bar on it to give her support so she feels safe on the back, and as far as having something to brace herself against and not fall off the back. And I liked the riding style, the riding position, being an 800cc, although cruisers aren't a fast bike, it had plenty of pep. I thought, well, this is going to suit me, and I took her down to have a look at it, and she was quite comfortable on it. So that's why I bought the Suzuki. So yes, I'm a two-bike family, and some people see that as crazy, but I did it so that my wife could enjoy my hobby with me. So I think I had all the good reasons why. And to be quite honest, as much as I love my Honda, I find it quite difficult to get my ass out of the seat on the Suzuki. It is just so comfortable to ride. Never having ever experienced a cruiser before, I have missed out on years of that style of riding. All of my bikes have been naked bikes, road bikes, just ordinary street bikes. I got into the hobby quite by accident. Because of work purposes, my car was off the road and I got given a Vespa 90 step-through scooter, and that was my very first taste of two wheels, and I fell in love. From that day on, I was an advocate for two wheels. So at the first opportunity, I bought myself a real bike, and so I bought myself a second-hand CB360, and that was the bike that my first wife and I, before we were married, we did everything on that. We went everywhere, you name it, we went there. We did all our shopping, all our running around, family stuff, all that sort of thing, on the 360, and it wasn't a problem. I then stepped up a big jump. I ended up with a job that was paying quite well. I was on good money, so I was able to save a reasonable amount of money and put a good deposit down and put the rest on finance and be able to afford the finance. I went and bought myself a CB900F Bollier road bike, and I loved that bike. It was awesome, heaps of grunt, very comfortable, good riding position. First wife was very comfortable on the back. Then I moved north and to a rural area, and a road bike wasn't much use to me then, so I swapped it with cash for a XR200R trail bike, and used to go up in the forestries and ride through the fire breaks. Used to ride around on a mate's farm and round up the cows, all that sort of carry on. And then it was pretty much time to, when we came back to Auckland, it was time to get rid of the bikes, settle down and be a little bit more family orientated. By this stage I was married, and I haven't had a bike for over 35 years. So that's the story of the bikes, why I got the bikes. I've been asked why did I bother doing a YouTube channel. I just felt that it was a lot easier to record my rides, what I was up to with the bikes, all that sort of carry on, for friends and family in a spot that everyone could access, instead of having everything on memory sticks and on photos on my phone and online and that sort of carry on, running out of storage space, all the hassles. It just meant that anybody that was interested in bikes also, or what I was up to family wise and that sort of carry on, they could follow the channel. Then Indonesia came along, of course, and you were going to end up with 3 months worth of emptiness, no content for bikes while I wasn't here, so it turned into a travel channel as well. So if there's anything you guys want to know about or want to see or want me to carry on doing or anything like that, feel free to comment. I hope everybody enjoyed what little bit of content we had in Indonesia. There's not a hell of a lot uploaded, simply because a lot of my time was spent with dental appointments. At one of the appointments I had was he carried on till midnight, trying to get everything done in time before I left the country. He was totally dedicated, and in fact, right towards the end, we had a 4-day public holiday, and on 2 of those days, public holidays, he elected to spend with me in his surgery rather than his family, in an effort to try and get everything done in time. So totally dedicated. I take my hat off to him. I thank him sincerely. I will be back there. He's just been marvellous. The trip itself cost me a fortune, as it does, because you got airfares and accommodation and everything like that. But that aside, We went there with the vision of getting my teeth fixed. Dentistry aside, just the dentistry alone was so much cheaper than having it done here in New Zealand. People have asked me why the hell I would go all the way to Indonesia to get my teeth fixed. Cost. I hadn't been to Indonesia since before COVID came along, so that's what, 5 or 6 years. 6 years. I hadn't seen family, all my nieces and nephews, and all that sort of carry on. My mother-in-law for a very, very long time, so a holiday was due anyway. So why not incorporate it with the teeth? And the teeth cost me $3,500. Well, I'm led to believe that here, to get all the extractions and the teeth made, would have been over 10 grand. So a considerable saving to tie it in with a trip. I didn't get to do a hell of a lot of touristy stuff because I was tied to appointments, but it is what it is. So there we go. If anybody wants to know anything else, just feel free to put a comment, ask a question. If you want to see anything particular in content, again, just put it in the comments. I thank those that are following. I hope that what interests me interests you guys. Obviously, people are quite happy to watch it because the views are they're all right, and I've got 26 regular viewers, subscribers. It was only ever going to be a family thing anyway, friends and family. Excuse me. So I'm quite happy with that. So hang in there, guys. Let me have some comments. Let me know what you want as far as ongoing content, and I'll see what I can do to accomplish that and provide what it is that you're interested in. So on that note, I'll call it quits, and thanks for hanging in there, guys, and thanks for joining me on my journey, and we'll catch you up on the next one. Cheers.